Hi there, welcome back to Haunting Vales. Tonight's mystery begins with a door that should never have been locked, and a crime that should have been impossible. Inside a sealed room lies the key to a chilling puzzle. But how could the killer enter? And how could they escape without leaving a trace? Is the locked room a trick of illusion, or the work of a mind far darker than anyone suspects? And who stands to gain from a crime that defies reason itself? Join us as Hercule Poirot confronts one of his most perplexing cases, where every theory is tested and every clue deepens the riddle. If you enjoy unraveling these mysteries, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Haunting Vales, and ring the bell so you never miss a new case. Chapter 1. The Chamber of Shadows. The rain had been falling since dawn, a ceaseless drizzle that cloaked London in a veil of gray. Captain Hastings, ever restless on such days, had suggested a visit to Whitehall. It was there that Chief Inspector Japp awaited them with a case he claimed would confound even the great Hercule Poirot. The trio assembled in the drawing-room of Harcourt House, a stately mansion with high ceilings and an air of quiet menace. Its owner, Sir Reginald Harcourt, had been found dead the previous night in his study. The door was locked from within. The windows were barred. No weapon lay near the body. And yet, Sir Reginald's throat bore the unmistakable mark of strangulation. Poirot stood in the center of the room, his hands clasped behind his back, his head cocked at a thoughtful angle. His polished shoes clicked softly upon the parquet floor as he paced, eyes darting to every corner with bird-like precision. "Mon Dieu," he murmured, "an impossible crime. The best kind of crime, n'est-ce pas, Hastings?" Hastings shifted uneasily. "Well, I wouldn't call it the best kind, Poirot. Poor fellow strangled in a locked room. Seems the devil's work to me." Japp snorted. Devil or no devil, someone strangled him. And unless ghosts take to walking in Mayfair, there's flesh and blood behind it. But blast me if I can see how. Poirot bent to examine the heavy oak door. Its brass lock gleamed dully in the lamplight, unmarred by scratches or tampering. He produced a small magnifying glass from his pocket and inspected the keyhole. "No marks," he said softly. "No forced entry. And the key." Japp held it up. "Found on the inside, lying by the body." Poirot's brows rose. Already the murderer tells us his story. He thinks himself clever. But he forgets. The little gray cells, they are cleverer still. They entered the study where the body had been discovered. The air was heavy, as though the room itself resented intrusion. A fire had guttered out in the grate, leaving only the scent of cold ash. Bookshelves lined the walls, their spines glinting faintly. On the massive mahogany desk lay scattered papers, an overturned inkstand, and a broken fountain pen. Poirot knelt by the corpse, which had mercifully been covered with a sheet. With a delicate motion, he drew it back. "Observe, Hastings," he said quietly. The thumbprint upon the throat, broad, deliberate. This was no crime of passion. It was performed with calculation. And yet, he lifted the victim's hand. "See here? Ink upon the fingers. Our dead man was writing when death approached." Hastings frowned. But if the door was locked and the windows barred, how could anyone have approached? "Just so," Poirot replied. "It is the riddle of the locked room. And riddles, mon ami, are meant to be solved." Later that evening, Lady Margaret Harcourt received them in the drawing-room, draped in mourning black, her face pale as ivory. She trembled as she spoke. "My husband was not a well man, Monsieur Poirot. He suffered from enemies, business rivals, political adversaries. But none could have reached him here, in his study. He trusted that room as his sanctuary." Poirot inclined his head. "And yet, Madame, sanctuaries sometimes become prisons. Tell me, who was present in the house last night?" "Only myself, my cousin Evelyn, our butler Graves, and Dr. Julian Wade." The doctor attended to my husband often. He was with us for supper before it happened. Japp grunted. 4 suspects in a house with a dead man in a locked room. That narrows it down. Poirot smiled faintly. Or perhaps it broadens it. Monsieur Japp. For when the impossible occurs, we must look beyond the obvious. Someone here knows the truth. The room lies, but it cannot lie forever. Lady Margaret clutched her handkerchief tightly, her eyes darting toward the doorway where Evelyn lingered. The young woman's face bore no tears, only a strange, guarded calm. Poirot noted it all. Every glance, every silence. The game begins, he whispered to Hastings as they departed. And already, I smell deception. That night, as Poirot sat in his apartment polishing his immaculate mustache, Hastings leaned forward impatiently. Well, Poirot, what do you make of it? Poirot smiled, cat-like. I make of it a riddle, Hastings. A riddle locked inside 4 walls. But I have read such riddles before. Do you recall the murder of Roger Ackroyd? The truth lay not in the locked study, but in the silence of those who claimed ignorance. Do you recall Peril at in-house? The weapon was hidden in plain sight, among the innocent things. Always, Hastings, the murderer counts upon us to overlook the simple. And here, Hastings pressed. Here, said Poirot softly, the murderer counts upon us to believe in the impossible. But Hercule Poirot does not believe in the impossible. He believes only in logic, and logic, mon ami, will unlock the door. Chapter 2, The Whisper Behind the Door. The following morning dawned clear, as though the rain had never fallen. Yet inside Harcourt House the air remained heavy, thick with unspoken fears. Hercule Poirot arrived promptly at 10, Hastings at his side, and was met by Inspector Japp, who looked more harassed than ever. Nothing, Japp muttered as they entered the hallway. No hidden passages, no tricks with the windows. The chimney's too narrow for a cat, let alone a man. Locked from the inside, key on the floor by the body. Blast it, Poirot, I've never seen the like. Poirot's mustache twitched with amusement. Courage, Monsieur Japp. The solution is there, I assure you. The murderer is clever, but never clever enough to outwit the little gray cells. Lady Margaret awaited them in the morning room, pale and sleepless. Evelyn Harcourt sat beside her, hands folded neatly, her eyes downcast. Dr. Julian Wade stood near the window, pipe in hand, while Graves the butler poured tea with mechanical precision. 4 faces for masks. Poirot studied them all. Mess Amos, he began, I ask your indulgence. I wish to reconstruct the night of Sir Reginald's death. Each of you will tell me, in your own words, what you saw and heard. Be exact. Even the smallest detail may hold the truth. Lady Margaret spoke first, her voice trembling. After dinner, Reginald retired to his study at 9:30. He often worked late. I went to my chamber around 10. I heard nothing unusual until the cry. Poirot leaned forward. A cry, madam? Yes, a single cry, sharp as though cut short. It must have been close to 11. I sent Graves to fetch help, but the door to the study was locked. We could not enter. When at last we forced it, Reginald was gone. Poirot inclined his head gravely. Merci, madame. And you, Mademoiselle Evelyn. Evelyn lifted her gaze slowly. I too heard the cry, but just before, I heard something else. A faint sound, like a whisper through the wood of the door. I thought it imagination, but it was real. A whisper. Hastings repeated. What did it say? Evelyn shook her head. I could not tell, only that it was there. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Très intéressant. A whisper behind a locked door. Continue, Dr. Wade. The physician drew on his pipe. I had been in the library, reviewing some notes. I heard the cry as well, though faint. I rushed with the others, but the door resisted us. When we entered, I examined the body. Strangulation, swift and efficient. Nothing more to say. Poirot tapped his finger against his lips. Efficient, yes. That is the word of science, is it not, Doctor? Dr. Wade flushed, but said nothing. Finally, Graves spoke, his voice stiff. I was in the servants' corridor when I heard the commotion. I went at once, but I saw nothing. The study door was locked, as her ladyship said. We broke it down together. Poirot's eyes lingered on him a moment longer than necessary. Then he smiled. Merci, all of you. You have given me much to ponder. After the questioning, Poirot and Hastings returned to the study. Dust motes danced in the morning light filtering through the barred windows. Poirot paced slowly, his head bent. Hastings, my friend, he said at last, do you recall the case of the murder in the Mews? A door locked from the inside, a pistol discharged, all pointing to suicide. And yet, it was murder. The locked room is the oldest trick in the book, but also the cleverest. Hastings looked around helplessly. But here there's no trick. The chimney's too small, the door solid, the windows barred. The man was strangled. How could anyone have reached him? Poirot stopped before the desk. He touched the overturned inkstand with a fingertip, then bent to examine the floorboards. Always the murderer leaves a trace. Hastings. A whisper, an overturned pen, a cry cut short. These are not accidents. They're the footprints of logic. He straightened suddenly, his eyes sharp. Tell me, Hastings, why does a man cry out if he is taken by surprise? And why whisper if no one is there to hear? Hastings blinked. I don't follow. Precisely, said Poirot softly. And therein lies the riddle. Someone was there. The room is locked, yet someone was there. Already, I begin to see the pattern. That night, as the house fell into uneasy silence, Poirot remained wakeful. He sat by the fire, his hands steepled, his mind whirring. The murderer has imagination, he murmured to himself. He creates an impossibility and hides within it. But there is no such thing as the impossible, only the carefully disguised. He closed his eyes, allowing the details to settle. The whisper, the cry, the ink-stained hand, the barred windows, each a piece of the puzzle. And in the darkness of Harcourt House, the walls themselves seemed to listen, holding tight to their secret. Chapter 3. The Silent Footsteps. The next day brought no peace to Harcourt House. A heavy fog had rolled in from the Thames, wrapping the mansion in a ghostly pall. Inside, tension gnawed at every corner. Servants whispered in corridors, doors shut softly as though in fear. In the great hall, the grandfather clock ticked with ominous solemnity. Poirot entered the study once more, Hastings at his side, and found Inspector Japp crouched by the fireplace. Morning, Poirot, Japp said grimly. Take a look at this. The sweep came an hour ago. Found nothing but ash and soot. No trace of rope, no marks. And yet the man was strangled. Blast it, I'd swear the devil himself had a hand in this. Poirot bent low, studying the grate. His eyes glistened with curiosity. He plucked a single piece of half-burned paper from the ashes. Ah, toujours there is something. Look, Hastings, ink upon the fragment. It was once a letter. Someone tried to destroy it in haste, but see how the fire did not consume it all. Hastings squinted. What does it say? Poirot tilted it toward the light. The words were faint, incomplete. Truth must never. The rest had crumbled away. The truth, murmured Poirot, is always the thing most feared. That evening, Poirot gathered the household once more. Lady Margaret, pale and frail, sat rigid in her chair. Evelyn Harcourt, ever composed, looked on with wary eyes. Dr. Julian Wade puffed furiously at his pipe, and Graves stood like a sentinel behind them. Mess Amos, Poirot began gently. I wish to ask again of the cry you heard. Think carefully. Did it sound like the cry of a man in pain, or the cry of surprise? Lady Margaret's hands trembled. It was sharp startle, I thought. Poirot nodded. Exactement. The cry of a man who saw something unexpected. And yet, if the door was locked, whom could he have seen? Julian Wade scoffed. We've been over this, Poirot. He was alone. It makes no sense. Poirot's eyes twinkled. Non, doctor. It makes perfect sense. He was not alone. Someone was with him in the study. Someone who should not have been there. The room stiffened. Evelyn Harcourt paled, her lips parting slightly. Graves shifted uneasily. Poirot continued softly. The locked room deceives us. But remember, Hastings, the old cases. The adventure of the locked room. The murder of Roger Ackroyd. The trick is never new. A window barred may not be truly barred. A lock may not be truly locked. The murderer counts on us to accept appearances. But appearances, they lie. Later, Poirot walked alone through the upper corridor. Hastings followed, confused. Poirot, he said at last, you can't really mean someone was in the study. The door was locked, the windows barred. Poirot stopped abruptly. His hand rested upon the wall, his eyes sharp. Hastings, do you not hear it? Hear what? The silence. Too perfect. In a house such as this, silence is never natural. There are footsteps, whispers, creaks. But here, nothing. It is the silence of concealment. Someone moves in this house as a shadow. As if in answer, a faint sound echoed down the corridor. A step, light and careful, as though someone sought not to be heard. Hastings froze. Poirot raised a hand for silence. The sound faded. The corridor lay empty. Silent footsteps, Poirot whispered. They betray the presence of one who knows more than he dares admit. We are watched, mon ami. Watched in every moment. That night, Poirot sat in the study once more alone. He had insisted on keeping vigil. Hastings dozed in a chair by the fire, the glow casting long shadows across the room. Midnight tolled on the great clock. Suddenly, scratch, scratch, a faint sound against the door. Poirot's eyes snapped open. He rose, silent as a cat, and crossed to the door. The key lay where it had been placed for the reconstruction, gleaming faintly in the keyhole. Then a whisper, low, indistinct, as though breathed through the very wood. You should not have come. Poirot's face hardened. He flung open the door. The corridor beyond was empty. Yet upon the carpet, just outside the threshold, lay the faint imprint of a footprint, slender, unmistakable, and fresh in the dust. Poirot stooped, touched it gently, and smiled a smile both grim and satisfied. At last, he murmured, the locked room begins to speak. Chapter 4. The Shattered Alibi. The morning sun filtered through the fog, casting Harcourt House in a pale, ghostly light. The mansion seemed smaller now, its grandeur diminished by the growing shadow of suspicion. Poirot, sharp as ever, assembled the household once more in the drawing-room. His little gray cells were restless, drawing patterns no one else could see. Lady Margaret sat clutching her lace handkerchief, her face drawn. Evelyn Harcourt, flawless on the surface, masked her unease behind calm composure. Dr. Julian Wade paced nervously, and Graves remained stiff, his eyes betraying something that unsettled even Poirot. Mesdames et messieurs, Poirot began with his customary softness. There is a question that haunts me, not merely who killed Sir Reginald Harcourt, but how. For that is the essence of our enigma. A man strangled in a locked room. Parbleu, it is most unnatural. Inspector Japp, perched on the edge of his chair, muttered, unnatural's right. No footprints, no weapons, no escape. I'm at my wit's end. Poirot's mustaches twitched. Ah, but there was an escape. Only we have not seen it. The murderer counts on us to accept the obvious. That is always the way. He turned suddenly to Evelyn. Mademoiselle, forgive me if I am bold. You said you were in the library that night, reading Peril at in-house, yes? Evelyn inclined her head. Yes, Monsieur Poirot. I thought it fitting, given your fame. Très bien. But tell me, do you not find it curious? When the cry was heard, you did not stir, you did not call for help. You only admitted to hearing it when Lady Margaret spoke first. Is that not so? Her lips parted, but no sound came. Poirot's gaze sharpened. You see, Hastings, a false alibi is like glass. It may glitter, but at the slightest touch, it shatters. Mademoiselle's account is not solid. It crumbles. The atmosphere thickened. Dr. Wade slammed his pipe onto the table. This is absurd, Poirot. Evelyn is incapable of such a crime. Look at her. Poirot's eyes turned to him, calm yet piercing. Doctor, you are quick to defend. Too quick, perhaps. Tell me, when you examined the body, why did you remark that the rope burns were inconsistent? You spoke before you should have known. Dr. Wade flushed. Immediately speculated. Speculation, none. It was knowledge. And knowledge is dangerous when one pretends ignorance. The silence that followed was suffocating. Lady Margaret let out a strangled gasp. Graves shifted again, his composure faltering. Poirot watched them all, noting each movement, each breath. That afternoon, Poirot and Hastings returned to the study. Poirot examined the locked door once more, his fingers tracing the smooth brass of the keyhole. Hastings, he said, imagine you are the murderer. You must leave the room, but you cannot. Unless you are clever. What then? You create the illusion of a lock. The key, the door, all a trick. You mean the killer wasn't trapped inside? Hastings asked. Just so. He, or she, left and locked the door from without. But how? The trick, mon ami, is simple if one has the proper tool. From his pocket, Poirot drew a length of fine wire, bent at the end. A false key, fashioned to turn the lock from the other side. And who among us would have such knowledge? A doctor, perhaps accustomed to delicate instruments. Or a butler, who keeps every key of the house. Hastings whistled. Good Lord. That night, Poirot confronted Graves in the servants' hall. Graves, you are a man precise, orderly. Yet when I asked where you were at the time of the murder, you hesitated. Why? The butler's face hardened. I was polishing the silver, sir. Nothing more. Poirot's gaze lingered, and yet the silver showed no sign of polish. I checked myself. No, Graves. You were elsewhere. You know more than you have said. For the first time, Graves faltered. His eyes darted nervously, his voice thin. I cannot, monsieur. I am bound. Bound? By loyalty or by fear? Graves said nothing more, only bowed his head. Poirot turned to Hastings as they left. Voilà, Hastings. The alibis, they crumble one by one. Each person in this house carries a secret. And secrets, they're like poison. Sooner or later, they kill. At midnight, Poirot once again sat in the study, waiting. The air was thick with dread. Hastings dozed in the chair, just as before. The grandfather clock struck 12. Then tap, tap, tap. 3 soft knocks on the window. Poirot turned sharply. The curtains stirred faintly, though the glass remained unbroken. And in that moment, a shadow moved across the terrace, a fleeting, silent figure, gone as quickly as it appeared. Poirot's eyes narrowed. His voice was low, certain, filled with the chill of revelation. The locked room is an illusion, Hastings. The truth waits just beyond that curtain. And tomorrow, I shall unmask the murderer. Chapter 5, The Final Revelation. The drawing room of Harcourt House was heavy with dread. Curtains drawn, lamps burning low, it seemed less a chamber of comfort than a stage awaiting judgment. Poirot stood at the center, immaculate in his dark suit, his mustaches sharp as bayonets. Hastings sat to one side, tense with anticipation. Inspector Japp leaned against the mantel, arms folded, his eyes watchful. One by one, the household entered. Lady Margaret, pale as parchment, leaned upon her cane. Evelyn Harcourt glided in, her beauty marred now by unease. Dr. Julian Wade followed, restless, striking a match to his pipe with trembling fingers. Last came Graves, silent, his face carved in stone. Poirot raised a hand. The room fell silent. "Mess Amos," he began, "we stand upon the threshold of truth. A man has died in this house, strangled in a room that no one could enter, no one could leave. And yet, someone did. Tonight, I shall prove to you how." He paced slowly, his voice steady, deliberate, each word measured with theatrical precision. "The trick, you see, was never in the murder itself. It was in the illusion. Sir Reginald's study was locked, yes. The key was inside, yes. The windows barred. To the simple mind, impossible. But to the clever mind? None. Not impossible at all." He stopped before the door of the study, gesturing toward the lock. "With a slender wire, bent just so, one may lock a door from the outside, leaving the key within. A conjurer's trick, but deadly. Only someone accustomed to tools of precision could manage it. A surgeon's hands, perhaps, or a servant's." All eyes turned at once to Graves. The butler stiffened, but Poirot shook his head. "Nah, not you, Graves. You were loyal, too loyal, perhaps. You concealed what you knew, but you did not kill. You feared the truth would destroy your mistress. And so, you held your tongue." Graves lowered his eyes, his silence confessing his fear. Poirot turned, slowly, to Evelyn. "Mademoiselle Evelyn, you, who claimed to be in the library reading. No one saw you there. And the book you claimed to be reading, Peril at In-House, was not where you said it was. I checked myself. Your alibi, it collapses. And more." Poirot drew from his pocket the fragment of burned paper, the letter. The words, faint but damning. "The truth must never." A warning from your uncle, perhaps? Or a threat? He discovered something, did he not? Something about you. Evelyn's composure wavered. "You're mistaken," she whispered. "You have no proof." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Ah, but I do. The footprint outside the study, slender, delicate, made by a lady's shoe. And last night, I saw the shadow upon the terrace. It was yours, mademoiselle." Evelyn's face blanched. Her lips trembled, but no words came. Poirot's voice softened, almost pitying. "You killed Sir Reginald. He intended to disinherit you, to expose your debts, your secret life in London. You could not permit it. And so, you strangled him. You left the room, locked the door with your improvised device, and returned silently, unnoticed. But you forgot one thing, mademoiselle. Poirot sees everything." The silence that followed was unbearable. Evelyn sank into her chair, her hands trembling. At last, she whispered brokenly, "Yes. Yes, I killed him." Lady Margaret let out a faint cry, and Graves turned away, his face lined with sorrow. Dr. Wade stared, stunned, pipe forgotten in his hand. Inspector Japp stepped forward grimly. "Evelyn Harcourt, I must place you under arrest." But Poirot raised a hand once more. His eyes, deep and solemn, rested upon her. "You sought to escape justice through cleverness, mademoiselle. But cleverness without conscience is ruin. Remember that." As Evelyn was led away, Hastings let out a long breath. "Good Lord, Poirot, I swear, I'll never understand how you do it." Poirot smiled faintly, adjusting his mustaches. "It is simple, mon ami. One listens to the little gray cells. They speak, if only one allows them to. And always, always, they reveal the truth." The great clock chimed, solemn and heavy. Harcourt House was silent once more. But in the silence, justice had spoken. And thus concludes the riddle of the locked room. Another case unraveled by the genius of Hercule Poirot. If you enjoyed this mystery, do not forget to like this video, share it with fellow lovers of crime and suspense, and subscribe for more tales of intrigue. Your support keeps these mysteries alive. Until next time, my friends, beware of the locked rooms around you. For sometimes the truth is hidden just beyond the keyhole.